Day 9 to 15, the community rally. After my parents left, I sat in the sunroom for hours, watching the light change as afternoon turned to evening. The magnitude of what I was facing settled over me like a physical weight. Despite all my determination, the legal reality was stark. I had few options. That night, I finally broke my silence about the situation, posting in our neighborhood's online community group. 3 years ago, I moved into my grandparents' old house on Maple Street with the understanding that it would eventually be mine. I've spent thousands renovating it, bringing it back to life, becoming part of this community. Now, my parents have decided to give the house to my married brother instead, because he has children and I don't. I have less than 30 days to find somewhere new to live. I wasn't expecting much. Perhaps some sympathetic comments, maybe advice on apartment hunting. What I got instead was an outpouring of support that left me stunned. Comments flooded in. That's discrimination against single people. Totally unfair. Your renovations have increased all our property values. We see how hard you've worked on that place. What can we do to help? This isn't right. By morning, the post had hundreds of comments. By afternoon, neighbors were stopping by in person. Mrs. Abernathy from across the street brought cookies and righteous indignation. It's not right, treating you like a second-class citizen just because you're not married with children. Tom from 2 doors down, a contractor who had occasionally given me renovation advice, offered his professional assessment. I could provide a formal appraisal of all your improvements. If they're going to push you out, they should at least pay market rate. Even people I barely knew expressed their support. The community had watched me transform the neglected property into one of the street's showcases. They'd waved as I worked in the yard, stopped to chat as I painted the exterior trim, complimented the gardens I'd planted. Then came the most unexpected ally of all, Olivia. She arrived alone, looking uncomfortable as she stood on my porch. "Can we talk?" I led her to the kitchen, where I'd been sorting through possessions, deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. "I saw your post," she said, declining my offer of coffee. "James, I had no idea how much this house meant to you." I raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Really? Michael never mentioned that this has been my home for 3 years? That I've renovated practically every inch of it?" She flushed. "He downplayed it. Said you were staying here temporarily, that you'd always known it was the family house and would eventually go to whoever needed it most. And you believed that?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "I believed my husband," she said simply. "But seeing your post, seeing the community response, it made me question things." "Michael lied to you," I said flatly. "This isn't temporary. It's my home. My parents promised it to me, then changed their minds because you two are having another baby." She fidgeted with her wedding ring. "If I had known, I never would have agreed to this. It feels wrong." "It is wrong," I confirmed. "But what are you going to do about it? The moving trucks are scheduled for 3 weeks from now, aren't they?" She nodded miserably. "I'm going to talk to Michael. Make him understand what this really means to you. He's not a bad person, James. He gets tunnel vision when it comes to providing for us." I softened slightly, remembering that Olivia was caught in the middle of this family drama. "I know he cares about you and Emily, but this isn't the only house in town. You could find somewhere else that doesn't involve displacing me." "You're right," she agreed, standing to leave. "I'm going to try to fix this. I promise." Whether her promise would amount to anything remained to be seen. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope, not just from Olivia's visit, but from the community response. People cared. They saw the injustice. I wasn't alone in this fight. The next day, Tom returned with a formal assessment of my improvements. $87,000 in added value, not counting my labor. This is conservative, he explained. A professional appraiser would likely put it higher. Armed with this document and the growing community support, I decided it was time to make a counteroffer to my parents. No more emotional appeals. It was time for hard numbers and public pressure. Day 16. The counteroffer. I arranged to meet my parents at a neutral location, a cafe downtown where the public setting might help keep emotions in check. They arrived looking tired, the strain of the situation finally showing in the lines around their eyes. "Thank you for coming," I began, more formal than I'd ever been with them. "I have a proposal." Dad looked wary but nodded for me to continue. I slid a folder across the table. "This contains a professional assessment of the improvements I've made to the house. As you can see, I've added approximately $87,000 in value, not including my labor." They glanced through the documents, expressions unreadable. "I'm prepared to purchase the house from you," I continued, "at fair market value minus the value of my improvements. I've already spoken with a mortgage broker. I can secure financing within 2 weeks." Mom looked up, surprised. "You want to buy the house?" "It's my home," I said simply. "I've always intended to own it eventually. Now seems like the right time to make that official." Dad frowned, considering. "And what about Michael and Olivia? They're counting on moving in." "They can find another house," I said firmly. "One that doesn't involve evicting a family member. I've done some research. There are several comparable properties for sale within a 5-mile radius of here." "It's not that simple," Mom began, but I cut her off. "It is that simple. You have 2 choices. Sell the house to me for a fair price, or prepare for an ugly, public battle that will damage this family permanently." Dad's eyebrows shot up. "Is that a threat?" "It's reality," I replied calmly. "My post about the situation has gone viral in the neighborhood. People are outraged on my behalf. The story of parents evicting their single son to give his home to his married brother makes for quite the compelling narrative in today's social climate. It wasn't exactly blackmail, but it was close, using the potential for public embarrassment as leverage. Not my proudest moment, perhaps, but I was fighting for my home with every tool available." Mom looked stricken. "You've been discussing our private family matters with strangers?" "I've been seeking support from my community," I corrected. "The community I've become part of while living in and improving that house." "This isn't like you, James," Dad said, his voice hardening. "Using threats, turning neighbors against us. And evicting me from my home isn't like you," I countered. "Or at least, it wasn't like the parents I thought I had, the ones who taught me about fairness and keeping promises." We sat in tense silence for a long moment. Finally, Mom spoke. "We need to discuss this with Michael and Olivia. They're expecting to move in. They've already given notice on their apartment." "That's not my problem," I said, though I felt a twinge of guilt thinking about Emily and the new baby. "They made plans based on taking my home. They can unmake those plans." "We'll consider your offer," Dad said finally. "But I want to be clear. This approach, turning this into a public spectacle, doesn't sit well with me, see. And taking my home because I don't have a real family doesn't sit well with me," I replied evenly. "I've tried reasoning with you. I've tried emotional appeals. This is what's left." As they stood to leave, Mom hesitated. "James, regardless of how this turns out, I hope you know we love you. This was never about loving Michael more or valuing his life choices over yours." But that's exactly what it is, I said softly. You decided his need for a house matters more than mine because he's following the traditional path, and I'm not. That's the definition of conditional love. She flinched as if I'd slapped her, but didn't argue. Perhaps, finally, my words were sinking in. We'll be in touch, Dad said, guiding Mom toward the door. I watched them go, wondering if I'd pushed too hard, burned too many bridges. But then I remembered the sunroom I'd lovingly restored, the gardens I'd planted, the life I'd built within those walls. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the fight, day 17. The viral explosion. I woke to my phone buzzing incessantly. Dozens of notifications lit up my screen, far more than the neighborhood community group should generate. Squinting at the bright display, I saw a message from my friend Alicia. James, you're trending on Mindshare. Call me ASAP. Trending? On Mindshare? The social media platform with millions of users? Heart racing, I opened the app and nearly dropped my phone. Someone had screenshotted my neighborhood post and shared it with a simple caption. Parents take house from single son to give to married brother with kids because single people don't deserve homes. Housing discrimination. Single tax. Family betrayal. The post had over 100,000 shares already. The comments section was a battlefield. This is why our generation can't afford homes. We're expected to be married with 2.5 kids before we deserve stability. I side with the parents. A growing family needs the space. Single guy can get an apartment. Nobody talking about how this man renovated the house? They're stealing his labor, too. Traditional families are the backbone of society. Sorry, not sorry. I scrolled, my stomach churning with a mix of vindication and horror. I'd wanted community support, yes, but this national spotlight was something else entirely. The story had transcended my neighborhood dispute and tapped into larger cultural tensions about housing, family values, and generational divides. My phone rang. It was Michael. "What the hell have you done?" he demanded without preamble. "Mom's in tears. Dad's phone is blowing up with calls from friends who've seen this hit piece online." "I didn't post it nationally," I said, which was true. "I just shared with the neighborhood group." "Well, it's everywhere now. People are calling us monsters. Someone found my work email and sent a message saying I'm perpetuating housing inequality. My work email, James." I should have felt sorry, perhaps. Instead, I felt a grim satisfaction. "Now, you know how it feels to have your security threatened." "This is different," Michael sputtered. "Is it? You're taking my home. Why shouldn't people know about it?" "Because it's private, and it's a family matter." "It stopped being private when you decided my living situation was less important than yours," I countered. "Actions have consequences, Michael." He was quiet for a moment. "Olivia told me she visited you, that she's having second thoughts." This surprised me. "And what do you think about that?" "I think—" He sounded conflicted. "I think this has gotten out of hand. We need to talk, all of us, in person, without the internet watching." "I agree," I said, "but I'm not backing down. This is my home." "We'll see," he said, before hanging up. An hour later, as I was responding to supportive messages from strangers, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a woman with a microphone and a cameraman behind her. "James Sullivan, I'm Melissa Chen from Channel 8 News. We'd love to get your side of the viral housing dispute with your family." The media had found me. My private battle had just become very, very public. Day 18, the media circus. I appreciate your interest, but I have no comment at this time, I told the reporter, closing the door before her cameraman could get a shot. But she was just the first. By noon, 3 more news vans had parked on my street. My phone was ringing constantly with calls from unknown numbers. Journalists, I assumed. I'd created a monster, and now it was feeding itself. I texted my parents. "We need to resolve this, today." Dad responded immediately. "Come to our place at 3. Bring a solution, not more drama." I spent the next few hours avoiding windows and drafting proposals. I needed to end this circus before it spiraled further. But I also couldn't give up my home. By the time I left for my parents' condo, slipping past reporters with a hat pulled low over my face, I had 3 options to present. Michael and Olivia were already there when I arrived, seated tensely on the couch. Mom looked like she hadn't slept, and Dad's expression was thunderous. "Before anyone speaks," I said, holding up a hand as Dad opened his mouth, "I want to be clear. I didn't seek out media attention. I shared my situation with our local community, and it resonated more widely than I expected. That said, I'm prepared to make a public statement asking for privacy if we can reach an agreement today." "You've made us into villains," Mom said, voice trembling. "Our friends are calling, asking how we could do such a thing to our own son." "Maybe because it is a villainous thing to do," I replied, trying to keep my tone even. Taking someone's home because they don't have the right kind of family structure isn't defensible. "It's our house!" Dad exploded. "We can do what we want with it." "Robert," Olivia spoke up unexpectedly, "it may be legally yours, but James has been living there for 3 years. He's made it his home. We should acknowledge that." I shot her a grateful look, surprised to find an ally in my sister-in-law. "I have 3 proposals," I said, unfolding the papers I'd brought. "Option 1. I buy the house from you at market value minus the value of my improvements. Option 2. We create a legal co-ownership arrangement where I gradually buy into the property over time. Option 3. You compensate me fully for my improvements plus relocation costs, and I find somewhere new to live. But I need 6 months, not 30 days. The room was silent as they digested my options. "What about us?" Michael finally asked. "Where are we supposed to go if we don't get the house?" "There are 4 similar properties for sale within the school district right now," I said, sliding a printout of listings across the coffee table. "Any of them would work for your family without displacing mine." "But we can't afford these," Michael protested, glancing at the prices. "You can, and if Mom and Dad help with the down payment, the money they were going to spend compensating me for improvements. Or if you sell your luxury car. Or cut back on your country club membership," I added, unable to resist the dig at my brother's spending habits. Michael flushed. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair," I retorted, "but at least my solutions don't involve making someone homeless." "You wouldn't be homeless," Dad argued. "You'd find an apartment." "After 3 years of investing in my home, I'd be displaced," I corrected. "And for what? Because Michael followed the life script you approved of and I didn't?" Mom wrung her hands. "It's not about approval, James. It's about needs. Children need stability." "And I don't need stability?" I asked quietly. "My life, my work, my sense of home, those don't matter because I don't have kids?" A heavy silence fell over the room. For perhaps the first time I saw uncertainty in my father's eyes. Olivia cleared her throat. "I think option 1 makes the most sense. James buys the house from Robert and Diana. Michael and I look for a different property, with some financial help if possible." Michael looked at her in surprise. But we haven't signed anything yet, she cut him off gently. And I don't want our new home to come at the expense of your brother's happiness. That's not the kind of family I want for our children. I felt a rush of gratitude toward Olivia. At least someone in this room understood what was at stake. Dad sighed heavily. Let us think about it. This isn't a decision to make hastily. You were hasty enough when you decided to take my home, I pointed out. James, Mom said wearily, please, no more antagonism. We'll consider your proposals seriously. We just need a day or two. I nodded reluctantly. Fine, but the reporters aren't going away, and I can't hide forever. Tell them no comment for now, Dad instructed. We'll figure this out as a family. As I left, Olivia walked me to the door. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't understand how much the house meant to you. Thank you for speaking up, I replied. It means a lot. Families should support each other, she said simply. All family, not just the ones with children. For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine spark of hope. Maybe there was a path forward after all. Says 19 to 21. The waiting game. The next 3 days passed in excruciating slowness. I worked from home, avoiding the occasional reporter who still lingered on my street. The viral story had evolved into think pieces about housing inequality and family privilege, with my situation as the launching point for broader societal debates. I ignored calls from morning show producers and podcast hosts wanting interviews. This wasn't about becoming the poster child for single people's rights. It was about my home. Finally, on the evening of day 21, my mother called. We've made a decision, she said, her voice careful and measured. Your father and I would like to meet tomorrow to discuss it. Just you. Michael and Olivia have already been informed. Good or bad news? I asked, heart pounding. Just come at noon, James. The uncertainty was agonizing. I barely slept that night, oscillating between hope and dread. Had my parents recognized the injustice they were perpetrating? Or were they doubling down, prepared to weather the public relations storm to give Michael what they thought he deserved? By morning, my nerves were frayed. I arrived at my parents' condo exactly at noon, steeling myself for whatever came next. Mom opened the door, her face giving nothing away. Dad sat at the dining table, a folder of papers before him. Neither looked angry, which I took as a positive sign. Sit down, James, Dad said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I complied, waiting. We've spent a lot of time thinking, he began slowly, about the house, about our promises to you, about what's fair. I held my breath. The situation has become complicated. The public attention, the family tension. It's not what we wanted. None of this is what I wanted, I said quietly. Dad nodded. Fair point. We've realized that we may have overlooked some things. Your attachment to the house, the work you've put into it, your right to stability, regardless of your family status. Mom reached across the table, taking my hand. We were wrong, James. Not about wanting to help Michael and Olivia. That part remains true. But about how we went about it? Taking your home wasn't the right solution. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, unexpected emotion welling up at this first acknowledgement of my position. So what happens now? I asked, afraid to hope too much. Dad slid the folder toward me. Option 1. We're accepting your offer to purchase the house. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a sales agreement, offering me the house at market value minus the assessed value of my improvements, exactly what I'd proposed. "Really?" I whispered, hardly daring to believe it. "Really," Dad confirmed. "It's the right thing to do. The house is your home. You've earned it." "What about Michael and Olivia?" I asked. "We're helping them with a down payment on one of the properties you suggested," Mom explained. "It's actually closer to Emily's future school than our house would have been." Relief flooded through me so powerfully I felt dizzy. "Thank you," I managed to say. "This means everything." Dad looked uncomfortable, but determined. "I want to apologize, James. We didn't intend to devalue your life choices. Over these past weeks, your mother and I have done a lot of soul-searching. We realized we've been carrying outdated notions about what constitutes a real life, a complete family." "The world is changing," Mom added, "and perhaps we should change with it. Your life is valid and valuable exactly as it is, whether or not you ever marry or have children." Their words healed something in me I hadn't realized was so deeply wounded, the part that had always felt judged for not following the conventional path. "I appreciate that," I said sincerely. "More than you know." "There's more," Dad said, tapping the folder. "We've structured this sale as a gift sale hybrid. The difference between the market value and what you're paying will be your early inheritance, just as we originally promised." I swallowed hard against the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. After all the conflict, the fear, the betrayal, my parents had found their way back to their original promise. My home would truly be mine. "When can we complete the sale?" I asked, already mentally preparing my mortgage application. "As soon as your financing is ready," Dad said. "We've already spoken to our attorney." As I left their condo that day, legal papers in hand, I realized that the ticking clock had stopped. The 30-day countdown was over, 9 days early. I had won, not just the house, but something more precious. Recognition of my worth, my choices, my right to define family and success on my own terms. Day 22. Reconciliation. The paperwork was filed, the mortgage application submitted. The sale would be completed within weeks. My home would officially be mine, no longer contingent on my parents' approval of my lifestyle choices. But one thing remained unresolved: my relationship with Michael. I texted him, "Can we talk?" Just the two of us. His response came quickly. "Park bench by the duck pond." 5 p.m. It was our childhood meeting spot, where we'd resolved countless sibling disputes over the years. The choice of location wasn't accidental. It was an olive branch. He was already there when I arrived, watching his reflection ripple in the water. He looked tired, I noticed. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from stress and sleepless nights. "Hey," I said, sitting beside him. "Hey," he replied, not looking up. "So you got the house?" "Yes," I confirmed. "And you're getting help with a down payment on a new place?" He nodded. "The one on Oakwood. It's actually nice. Better layout for kids than the old house. Brand new kitchen." "That's good." We sat in silence for a moment, watching a family of ducks glide across the pond. "I owe you an apology," Michael finally said. "I shouldn't have tried to take your home." "No, you shouldn't have," I agreed, not making it easy for him. He sighed. "It's just, everything came so easily to you, James. Always. You were the smart one, the creative one. You've lived this exciting, independent life, while I've been grinding away at a corporate job I hate, just trying to provide for my family." I looked at him in surprise. You think my life has been easy? Hasn't it? No mortgage, traveling whenever you want, working on projects you choose. I shook my head, amazed at how differently we saw each other's lives. Michael, I spent years struggling to build my freelance business. Those travels? Most were for work, not pleasure. And I've had plenty of nights lying awake wondering if I've made all the wrong choices, if I'd be happier following the conventional path like you did. He finally turned to face me. Really? Really? I've envied your certainty, your clear path. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just drifting. It felt strange to admit this vulnerability, especially now. Michael laughed softly. That's funny, because I've envied your freedom, your courage to live differently. The grass is always greener, I mused. Yeah. He tossed a pebble into the pond, watching the ripples spread. But that doesn't excuse what I did. I should have stood up to Mom and Dad when they suggested taking your house. I should have said no. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. He thought for a moment. Fear, mostly. Fear of disappointing them. Fear of not providing enough for Emily and the new baby. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe some resentment that you got to live in the family home while I was crammed into an apartment with a growing family. You never said anything. Would you have offered to trade places? I considered this honestly. Probably not. I love that house. Exactly. He smiled ruefully. So I took the opportunity when it came. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. His apology felt genuine, and I found my anger toward him melting away. I forgive you, I said, but I'm still keeping my house. As you should, he agreed. Olivia helped me see that. She was furious when she realized what was really happening. She's a good person, I said. You're lucky. I know, he hesitated. And James, for what it's worth, I never thought your life was less valuable because you're single. That was Mom and Dad's hang-up, not mine. I wasn't sure I fully believed him, but I appreciated the sentiment. Thanks. So, he said, standing and dusting off his pants. Think we can put this behind us? Maybe by the time the new baby arrives? I stood too, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I think we can try, starting with dinner at my house, my officially going to be mine house, next week? We'd like that, he said, offering his hand. Instead of shaking it, I pulled him into a hug. Don't ever try to take my house again, I warned, only half joking. Lesson learned, he promised. Days 23 to 30. The new normal. The final week of my 30-day countdown passed in a flurry of activity. I signed mortgage papers, met with attorneys, and began the process of officially purchasing my home from my parents. The media attention gradually faded as newer controversies captured the public's imagination. On day 28, I hosted a dinner for my family. All of them. My parents, Michael, Olivia, and little Emily gathered around my dining room table. The tension of previous weeks noticeably diminished. To new beginnings, Dad offered as a toast, raising his glass. And to family, I added, in all its forms. Mom smiled at me over her wine glass, a hint of sadness in her eyes. I truly am sorry, James. I hope you know that. I do, I assured her. We're moving forward now. After dinner, I gave Emily a tour of the backyard garden I'd planted, showing her the strawberries just beginning to ripen. Her delighted squeals as she discovered a tiny berry felt symbolic somehow. Joy returning to a place that had seen so much conflict. Inside, Olivia admired the sunroom. This is exquisite, she said. "No wonder you fought so hard to keep this place." "It's not just the house," I admitted. "It was the principle, the idea that my life choices somehow made me less deserving of stability." She nodded thoughtfully. "That mindset is everywhere, isn't it? The assumption that life follows only one valid path." "Exactly. That's why this battle became about more than just real estate." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from a publication called Modern Family Dynamics, requesting an interview about my experience. I'd received dozens of similar requests over the past weeks, declining them all. But this one gave me pause. "You know," I said to Olivia, "maybe there's value in sharing this story more widely. Not the dramatic viral version, but the real story, about expectations, different life paths, and what family really means." "I think there is," she agreed. "More people need to hear that families come in all forms, and that traditional isn't the only way to be valid." On day 30, the day that was supposed to mark my eviction, I instead signed the final paperwork, making the house officially mine. My parents handed over the original deed, now amended with my name as the sole owner. "It's yours now, legally and spiritually," Dad said, "as it should have been from the start." That evening, alone in my home, undisputed, I wandered from room to room, touching the walls I'd painted, the floors I'd refinished, the windows I'd restored. The house felt different somehow, more solidly mine than ever before. I settled in the sunroom as twilight painted the sky in purples and blues. My phone contained an email draft, my response to Modern Family Dynamics, agreeing to tell my story. Not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever been made to feel that their life choices rendered them somehow incomplete. For everyone who'd been told that family could only look one way. For everyone fighting to define home and happiness on their own terms. The 30-day countdown that had begun with fear and betrayal had transformed into something unexpected. A catalyst for growth, understanding, and ultimately, affirmation. My home was mine. My life was valid. And those truths, hard-won though they were worth every moment of the fight. As night fell, I hit send on the email and smiled. This ending was also a beginning, not just for me and my newly secured home, but perhaps for a broader conversation about what family, worthiness, and belonging really mean in a world that's finally learning to embrace different paths. The house creaked and settled around me, as houses do. A living thing, holding stories within its walls. And now, our story had a new chapter, one of reconciliation, understanding, and the unshakable knowledge that everyone deserves a place to call home, regardless of how they choose to fill it.